to mix and match effects in the amp and in the processor gives me an enormous amount of flexibility. And now I'm going to turn the pedal down some, but it's still just as dirty. Another thing we can do with our processing technology here is if we go over here, if we pick out, let's go back up here to our regular old straight steel guitar patch. One thing we can do over here in the output section, we can change the way things are configured. Over here on the where it says master, we can pull up all sorts of things. We can pull up an EQ if we want to, an equalizer, and we can actually change our tone settings in our processor as well. And I've done that over here in a patch that I named Fender 400. Now, sometimes I'm called upon to play the West Coast sounding Ralph Mooney Bakersfield tunes. And when I want to go for that kind of sound, I want it to sound a little brighter and a little thinner and a little bit more like those days. So here's what my regular, if I were to play something like that with my regular patch, it would sound like this, a classic Buck Owens intro. Okay, now if I go down here and click on that Fender 400 patch, hopefully it might sound a little bit more like the real record. And really all that we've done here is just change the EQ around. So let's see what that one sounds like. And so that's how we can also use our processor to change tonality as well as creating ambient effects or delays or things of that nature. Now, I said earlier that modern day amps oftentimes have effects built into them as well. So right now I'm playing through my Boss Katana Mark I. And so far, the only thing that I've used it for is just my basic tone setting. I haven't started playing around with the effects that are in my amp at all. But I'd like to show you how there are some things I've built inside my amp as well, using this same idea of the computer software. The amp runs off computer software the same as this processor does. So that patch that I showed you here a bit ago that I called Big Organ, where I said that didn't necessarily track so well in the processor, I built myself a version of that amp that actually works fantastically. So here's my regular setting, and here's that organ patch I built in my amp. And this one tracks dead on every time. Zero latency between the original notes and the octave ones. And that's a pretty in-your-face organ. But all it is that same Leslie effect and just a little bit of an octave above it and a little bit of an octave below it. Now, another thing that I do sometimes is I combine whatever effect I'm using in my processor with something that I've got built in my amp. And I'll show you how that sort of thing might work. I built myself an acoustic simulator in my amp. Here's my regular patch. Here's my acoustic simulator patch. Now, every once in a while, I'll use that in combination with some other effect. And sometimes I'll use that for kind of like a Weisenborn sort of thing. Now, I also built myself, just because sometimes it's easy to access, I built myself one of those Fender 400 patches in my amp as well. So that one sounds like this. But the thing of it is when you have all these different patches built in different places throughout your chain, and you can mix and match them. For example, I might want to have Fender 400 going with the amp and slow steel going with the processor, so that I got some kind of really bright but really full sounding ballad tone. as opposed to what it would sound like with my regular patch. So being able to mix and match effects in the amp and in the processor gives me an enormous amount of flexibility. So now I'm going to reset all the stuff in the processor and all the stuff in the amp back to my default settings. Then we're going to talk about this other effect that I use, which is the overdrive pedal. When we started out in this series, I talked about the fact that I go out of my guitar and into my overdrive pedal. And you might be saying, what does an overdrive pedal do and why do I need to know? Okay, at times you might need to play something that sounds dirty. So here's clean, regular old steel. And I'm going to kick in that overdrive pedal down here with my foot. I keep it right next to my volume pedal so I can take my foot off my volume pedal and just click it on. And now it's dirty, right? You may not be into playing rock and roll or blues or anything else that is dirty on the steel guitar. You might not want to sound like Robert Randolph, but if you do want to sound like Robert Randolph, this is the way to achieve it. So now that I've got that going on, if I wanted to play something that sounded like rock and roll, I can do that. The reason I put this separate from all my other effects, although my processors will do this, they will create excellent sounding overdrives, this has to do with the gain structure. I want that overdrive pedal to get maximum signal at all times. That's why I go out of the guitar and into my overdrive first, so that it's always getting the hottest signal. And then I go into my volume pedal after that. The reason for that is, if I play quieter by turning my pedal down, so here I am pretty loud, and now I'm going to turn the pedal down some, but it's still just as dirty. That's because the pedal, the stomp box pedal, is receiving all that hot signal the entire time. So I can go up and down with my level with my volume pedal, and nothing else ever changes. So I want my overdrive pedal to have that scorching hot signal all the time. Now, another thing about overdrives and distortions and the pedal steel. As you may know, a little bit of light crunch sounds really good on the guitar. It doesn't always sound so good on the pedal steel. If you're going to have your pedal steel be dirty, go ahead and have it be really dirty. A little bit of dirty just sounds like a clean signal that's not clean anymore. So if you're going to play stuff that's dirty, go ahead and make it dirty. And then by having all that extra gain, you can milk some of the harmonics and stuff out of the steel that it has to offer, like this sort of thing. Where it'd be hard to get the guitar to do that if it didn't have all that screaming gain going on all the time. So if you're going to play dirty stuff, make sure you put your dirty signal in front of your volume pedal and go ahead and crank it up and make it really dirty. I hope this has opened up some doors and some ideas about how to deal with effects on the pedal steel and how to get the most bang for your buck. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.
See the equipment our pros use at the best prices anywhere online. Support small business and save.